It definitely is a sign of maturity in a trumpet player to recognize that the simplest things we have to play are definitely the hardest. If we practice effortful, then we will get maybe faster fingers or better range, but the effort that we put in becomes a habit. And music should truly be a massage for the ears. So one of those things that can be implemented right away is first defining a quality professional sound in a way that's not too subjective. Because of course, some of us prefer a warmer sound or a brighter sound, and you could describe sounds in various ways. But a truly resonant sound is the goal of all trumpet players. So you can try to find this, and I think that the key word here is find. We tend to think that we make our sound, but I think it's more accurate to say that we actually uncover it. Like an archaeologist that knows there's dinosaur fossils to be found, and they get the general idea of where they might be, but it just comes down to finding where they are. So what I would suggest as the first step for this is pick a note, and you can tongue it or breath attack it. That actually doesn't matter. What's important is that you can actually ignore the way the note speaks and the way the note releases, because what you're trying to do here is make micro tweaks until the sound is so resonant that it actually turns your thinking mind off completely. And you could probably do this in one sitting if you listen carefully enough. And when you get it, it should feel quite nice. It should sound nice, and it should feel effortless, almost like you're getting more out of the sound than you're putting into it. So that would be, from now on, your definition of your true sound, your best sound. Now, of course, most of the times, our sounds do need to have a pretty specific front, either an articulation, or even if it's a fade-in, the music dictates what that must be. So to define an optimal articulation would be to have that best part of the note instantaneously, instantaneous resonance. Now, those were pretty consistent, but they were all slightly different, and you can rewind this and hear for yourself. Again, the music dictates what type of articulation the music requires, but your practice dictates whether you're actually able to deliver it. So again, your optimal sound is the best part of a long note, ignoring the articulation and cutoff. And then the optimal articulation is that optimal sound instantaneously. Notice I'm not mentioning anything about how hard you should articulate or how much front it should have, right? It's just the best part of the note right away. Books like Schuberg, Lip Trainers for Trumpet, have material that isolate this type of basic playing. But honestly, you could pretty much do anything. And one thing I recommend is do this in your routine, but also punctuate your actual practice of repertoire with fundamentals like this, so you have a sense of their context. Now, if you're ever able to do that with a pretty reasonable amount of consistency, you can move up a half step, you can move down a half step, and continue like this for the rest of your life until the entire range, at every dynamic imaginable, every note imaginable, feels and sounds effortless and resonant. And you're never really done with this, but you will get better with practice. Now, the third aspect to a professional sounding note is its decay. In the classical style, one of the defining features in most cases is that the note does not have a definitive end, regardless of how short it is. It's almost like a bell where the sound disappears and you don't really know the moment that it loses your audible sense of hearing. You can apply this fact to short notes as well. da, da, right? As opposed to da, where the tongue stops the air. The tongue stopping the air sounds like this. Now, there's musical moments where the composer wants this. Stravinsky is one that does want that level of aggressive shortness sometimes, and that's fine. But your default, and what's I think harder to do, is to get an instantaneous sound with a perfect taper, regardless of the note length. And that is how I would suggest defining an optimal note. Now, this way of practicing actually doesn't get into intonation yet, and that's on purpose, because sometimes if we play with a tuner or even a drone, we get in the habit of lipping a note around. And of course, that changes the quality of the sound, which is not great. So the first step would be to do those three things with enough time, over enough time, anywhere from a week to months, really. And then, once you're able to consistently get an instantaneous resonant sound with a nice, effortless taper, start doing this with a drone or with a tuner. Because what you'll probably find is that some notes are flat to the tuner, some notes are sharp. And of course, as a professional, your job is to play with a beautiful sound in tune, not just simply resonant. And importantly, lipping a note where the sound is sacrificed to get it in tune is also not an option, or certainly not a professional sound. So practicing with the drone in this way might look something like this. Now notice how I came in high and immediately adjusted. Almost. Now, one of the things I really like about drone work versus tuner work, although they both have important functions in our practice, is that with the drone work, you're listening outward. And it counters a really important tendency for us as especially trumpet players in the practice room. I'm fortunate to be in a large and very beautiful sounding resonant space here, which encourages me to listen to my sound and make subconscious micro adjustments to play with the space in hopefully an artistic way. But most of us, most of the time, are practicing in a room that doesn't sound good. It's either boomy and loud or dead and loud, or it just doesn't feel good on the ears. And music should truly be a massage for the ears. So we're really stuck here. But the real issue is that this leads to us basically not listening to our sound at all, because it hurts. It actually hurts to listen to our sounds. Now, the drone forces you to listen outward regardless of this. Of course, it also covers up some aspect of your sound, but it does get you to stop just zoning out and playing mindlessly. Now, I've mentioned the word effortlessness and ease a lot. Actually, maybe I never said ease, but I meant to. And it's an important aspect of playing, because I think the myth is that the ease, the effortlessness, comes with time eventually. And the truth is that it doesn't. If we practice effortful, then we will get maybe faster fingers or better range, but the effort that we put in becomes a habit. So you can imagine an example of this where somebody is able to play up to a certain note, maybe a G above the staff, but they have to really squeeze for that. And instead of working on expanding that, but also expanding the quality of the sound in the mid and low range and expanding that outward, they only work on the extremes of what they're able to do. Of course, the extremes will expand. Eventually they'll get an A and maybe a B and maybe a C, but they're all going to feel hard. And they're all going to sound hard because for that player, it is hard. So it's really important to work the ease in. Maybe for beginner players where really essential and basic techniques are not part of your toolbox yet. An analogy would be somebody learning how to walk. They don't have to be detail-oriented when they're trying to do that. They're just trying to figure out how to tap into gravity. But eventually, this level of nuance is absolutely essential. even in there, you could hear that there are micro improvements that could be made. I went a little sharp on some of the notes, and this is the type of work that is essential for to develop a professional sound.